Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a wonderful day as we get things kicked off here. Later on in the program, we will be having computer and technology news, where we cover, just the latest and greatest news stories that you should definitely hear about. But for now, the first part of our show will consist of an interview and actually two interviews at the same time. This is going to be a lot of fun. Of course, Epson, we have heard from them, and we have talked extensively about their printer lineup, for small, medium businesses as well as consumer-grade products. Always a pleasure to have them on the show, but they will be joining us. They'll be joining us here with another company called ARtGlass. And yeah, we're going to have a link to everything we talk about here in the show notes over at computeramerica.com. But we are talking AR. I know, Epson and AR. Not the usual gaming-centric kind of conversation. These are going to be applications with actual real-world, applications. So joining us are both Mr. Greg Werkheiser. He is the CEO and founder of ARtGlass. And also joining us will be Anna Jen. She is the director of the Augmented Reality Solutions at Epson America. So welcome onto the show, both of you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Delighted to be here.
All right. So yeah, and this is going to be super fun. But I think we'll start off with Epson and of course Anna, because it's one of those things that, like I said before, Epson's been on the show. Scanners, printers, way back when, fax machines. I mean, you guys had a lot of those kinds of solutions. But AR, I don't think that's a name people immediately, kind of word association with Epson. So AR is not one that they associate with Epson not too often. Talk about the overview of Epson and their, kind of foray into augmented reality.
Absolutely. I think a lot of folks don't realize that Epson is actually one of the world's largest manufacturer of projectors, both in classrooms and for home entertainment, and also in corporate meeting rooms. So with that same projector technology, we've been able to miniaturize it and essentially put a little mini projector in each leg of kind of the arm of the Moverio glasses, if you will. So think about two little projectors on each side of the temple, projecting content directly in your field of view. And the fantastic thing about this technology we're using, called silicon OLED, is that it offers kind of a true transparent background when you view the content. So it's no longer feeling like you're just putting a monitor or a smartphone in front of your face. The projected content is actually kind of transparent, overlaid into the real world.
Right. Yeah, and that is. And I'm sorry to cut you off there, but just want to make it clear that is the difference between augmented or mixed reality and virtual reality, is because you overlay content information over the real world, and that has a number of applications. And if you don't mind, we're going to bring Greg in now and talk about kind of your work over at ARtGlass, capital A, capital R, and how you talk about why you founded the company and why was now a good time to do this. Because augmented reality, it's been a long time coming, but I think just lately the technology has really been refined. So talk about the founding of ARtGlass.
Sure. Again, we appreciate being on the show. ARtGlass provides wearable augmented reality experiences for cultural and historic sites. And what that means is that you'll show up to a particular place. For instance, George Washington's Mount Vernon has recently announced that they will be deploying an ARtGlass tour. You'll be show up with your family to take a regular tour, and suddenly you'll have the opportunity to don a pair of smart glasses and take maybe a 45-minute, 13-stop tour, and we will layer over the real-world estate at Mount Vernon stories told through kind of AR magic. So that includes visuals like video and holograms, audio, all of it 3D and immersive, because the hardware that we're using, Epson's Moverio product, has binocular lenses that allow for a truly visually immersive experience. And of course, audio goes along with the tour, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do through ARtGlass is tell some of the same old stories, but also new stories about historic places in ways that draw visitors back, that draw new and more diverse visitors, and that leave the visitor with a kind of a more emotionally and intellectually compelling experience having been to the site, which of course has impacts on the bottom line for the sites themselves. And so ultimately it means that these kind of iconic sites around the country will be more sustainable long term, which of course has implications for the quality of life for all of us.
Right.
So that's what ARtGlass does.
Right. So and of course, I've been on a number of tours. Of course, grew up going to museums and the like. It's if it's not out in nature and you have a tour guide, then it's in a museum. And slowly you start to see tour guides, of course, continue to be a thing. They have audio tours that you simply used to be a cassette player, but these little players that you could kind of go at your own pace and listen to the information, or it was television screens, and they tried to essentially show you a little mini documentary as you walk through. These were all the technologies that that ARtGlass was where people were experiencing before. Now we have augmented reality. It's to a point affordable. It is definitely immersive, but I guess as Epson, what do you see as kind of the appeal of putting this in these places? What does AR do better than a video screen, than a tour guide, than some of these other things people may have experienced before?
Great question. I mean, personally for me, I've actually been to one of the inaugural sites, which is the James Monroe Highland site. And what was interesting was to be able to step on the estate, and there was an area where it was excavated and found to be the original location of the house. And with the magic of the ARtGlass content paired with the glasses, I was actually able to see how they excavated and how, and I think in the future you're going to be able to see how that house actually looked on that particular site. So all of a sudden now you're able to go through layers of history without having to disturb the cultural heritage site. And visually see, the evolution of that estate without having to, like I said, put up signage that kind of maybe can be intrusive to the enjoyment of the estate.
Yeah, I've certainly been to those places where, they put up a little plaque that said here was the old barn house. It burned down a couple of years ago, but I guess now with AR, you'd be able to recreate that or give some kind of, image that would convey that better than a little placard or someone telling you what it was. You could actually see it for yourself. So, Greg, you obviously have seen this in action, and I guess for the people who use them, I don't want to say that there would be some kind of age differentiation between this, but what audiences are you trying to draw with these glasses? Is this something, just trying to get the kids into museums? Is this something that, just people of all ages would really enjoy seeing it? I mean, what audiences are you really trying to capture with these experiences?
Your audience would probably be surprised, as I was surprised, to find that when we deployed ARtGlass at almost 30 sites in Europe now, kind of iconic sites like Formula One racetrack at Monza, or royal palaces, or the Tower of Pisa Square, that we did not, the data shows that we're not receiving a disproportionate amount of users in any particular age bracket. Just anecdotally, a story that kind of represents this is when we announced in the United States that our first kind of pilot site would be at Monroe's Highland. One of the first people to show up was a 90-year-old woman who had read about it in the newspaper, lived a couple of hours away, decided that it wasn't too late for her to be among the first people in the U.S. to experience this, drove herself to the site and went through the tour. So we're not seeing what you might first think, which is that this is just something that attracts young people. Mm-hmm. Having said that, attracting young people, the vaunted millennials and others, to historic and cultural sites is a top priority of those sites, because they have sustainability issues. The traditional view of these sites attracting blue-haired folks who care about the culture and history, there's certainly a significant component in that audience. But ultimately, we have to get young people interested in coming to cultural sites, or the history that those sites tell, and the culture and cultural appreciation and the values that those sites convey will not be transferred to the next generations.
Right.
So we're not intending through ARtGlass to in any way cheapen or make gimmicky or diminish the experience of being in a place like a great museum, but we're trying to acknowledge that people of all ages these days have an expectation that if they're going to go to those sites, that there's going to be something special there, and that that speaks to them in a more sophisticated storytelling way. And that's ultimately what the technology is about. The end is not the fancy technology, that's the means. The
Right.
end is a more powerful experience for visitors at sites that brings them back.
I'm sorry, you were about to say, Anna?
I was going to say, I think that's a great point that Greg made, is that now all of a sudden you have ability to have a character and different characters kind of take you through a cultural heritage site. And you can see it through the optics of all those different characters that lived or experienced that particular site through the different time periods in history. So it's a pretty exciting way to storytell, and it kind of makes it a much more mesmerizing experience.
Right. Yeah. And I was about to say that I really do think, hope, and I really do believe that we are fast approaching a time when computers and the internet and what we can do with these devices, they've kept us glued to screens in office buildings and so on and so forth, because we could kind of take in a lot by not actually having to go there. But I think there's a resurgence in the ability to get up, physically interact with the space, go somewhere, go outside. That's different for an entire generation. And, I think that's where augmented reality can really shine, because it's not like virtual reality, which closes you off, blanks everything out, and builds a canvas for you. It's, overlaying on top of what is already there. And that's the exciting part. And I guess that's the question I have for Epson, is that we're showing off the glasses available through your site, $780, not half bad. I mean, we've seen a lot higher before. I would even call it, for many businesses, affordable. So, Epson, you guys are not exactly, strictly about culture or heritage sites, but I would assume that Epson sees a wider range of applications other than this very cool one. But I mean, just for businesses or or what have you, what is Epson's goal for really showing off this technology in this application, and where do you hope to see it grow?
Great question. Again, we have focused on kind of two segments of the augmented reality market. And our goal is to make augmented reality glasses accessible to both what we call enterprise partners like ARtGlass. We have developed a model called the Moverio BT-350, which is really designed to be more rugged. It has kind of flexible hinges, so it fits different head sizes in a much more comfortable and easy way. And those glasses are obviously more expensive than the version we have for the consumer market or the prosumer market, called the Moverio BT-300. So ARtGlass obviously is using the Moverio BT-350, given the number of tours they're giving each day with the glasses. With the BT-300, we've had a lot of success in a segment called drone piloting. You're familiar with DJI drones?
Of course.
Our Moverio glasses have actually become very popular for DJI drone pilots to have what's known as a first-person view. So and what we call having a heads-up flying experience. So they're able to wear the glasses, see what the drone sees through the camera, and also be able to see through the glasses and maintain that visual line of sight. So we're very excited as well in that consumer space with respect to our activities with the DJI drones. And on the enterprise and commercial side, ARtGlass has been a great partner worldwide in terms of bringing our technology into the arts and culture area. But we also have other ISV partners who bring our glasses into applications such as remote assistance and remote support. So there's a lot of different applications for the Moverio glasses, and we wanted to launch these at a very accessible price point for these different applications.
Right. And I mean, just to be clear about some on the technology side, many of the virtual reality, even some of the augmented reality that we've seen, 1,400 sounds like a lot, but I mean, even when you go back to, I kind of consider VR and AR like not the same thing, but the same field. And even when it first launched, you have these for 1,400. I remember when VR first launched, it was $1,000 for the headset, and then another $2,000 for the computer to actually run them. These glasses you have here, 1,400. Do they have to be hooked up to anything else? Is there like a little pocket computer people have to carry around to power them? Or are they, how self-contained are these glasses?
So these glasses are built on the Android operating system. And I always like to call it almost like a deconstructed tablet, where you're wearing the display of the tablet and you're holding the processor, the controller, in your hand. So when you wear the glasses, there is a tethered controller that fits nicely in the palm of your hand, and it has a little trackpad which you can navigate like a mouse. So and because of the Android operating system, this allows a lot of developers to create various applications for the glasses. So think about these glasses as almost the early days of a computer, where the computer was really, the usefulness of the computer was really dependent on some of the key applications and things like Microsoft Office, Excel, and PowerPoint. And so ARtGlass, they're kind of like the Microsoft of arts and history, arts and culture right now in terms of applications for art glasses.
Makes perfect sense. So, Greg, I mean, obviously you said that you had a lady, I believe you said about 90 years old, go and try these things. That kind of answers my next question about when you give people these devices, because it's one of the first times seen in America. I'm sure to a lot of people, AR as a concept has never been seen before. Are there any hurdles to using this technology, or is it just that seamlessness that you feel other sites, other curators, what have you, do you feel that they should be interested because of the barrier to entry is just so low, or other than price, but the the usability is so easy?
So I think our glasses are designed to be usable. But I think Greg could probably weigh in better about his particular application.
Right, Greg?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Each generation of sorry about that. Hold on one second.
No problem. And just real quick, I mean, and of course, Anna, we kind of skipped over this, but we touched just lightly on it. Epson's goals for getting this into different fields, because arts and cultures and things like that are great, but at the same time also getting these glasses. We've seen other applications such as like UPS for package and parcel delivery, being able to train people before they ever put them in a truck is invaluable. Are there any fields that you feel that, or Epson feels, would really kind of take readily to this new technology?
So one of the biggest application areas in the what we call the enterprise commercial space, where there's many application partners already running pilot projects, is in the area of remote maintenance and support, where you have a field tech who goes onto the job site, and it turns out the piece of equipment is one that he may not have been trained on. So putting on the Moverio glasses, he's able to and then tether to a hotspot. He can then contact the remote expert at his office, and the front-facing camera of the Moverio glasses will stream the situation to the remote expert, and then the remote expert can actually provide that field tech with work instructions in his field of view, or even send him, diagrams of how to fix of how the circuitry looks, or how to fix this of the particular equipment right into his field of view using the glasses.
That is super impressive. So, and Greg, if you're there, the question, yeah, perfect. So the question I had for you, just to recap, was on the usability side, and because I think that is a concern that people maybe don't readily understand how to use, sometimes new devices. How has it been, just getting these into people's hands, and has there been any barriers to use?
With the adoption of any technology, there is always barriers to use as people get used to it, right? And the advantage, though, that we're seeing as between handheld devices, some cultural sites have experimented a little bit with using iPads or smartphones. Of course, the challenge with that is that the visual renderings are two-dimensional, and you're always either looking down or holding something in your hand between yourself and the art object or the historic object that you're trying to observe and that we've augmented. The advantage of the glasses is that it's 3D, it's immersive, and it's hands-free. Anna mentioned earlier that you have the option of carrying around a little controller with you. Epson has handily produced a neck strap that allows you to wear it around your neck. And for most of the tours that we design for ARtGlass, there is no requirement that the person taking the tour touch anything, scan any barcodes, do really anything other than just wear the glasses. Now, we direct them sometimes in a certain path, or give them the option to craft their own path in the tour. Our technology uses kind of, to put it simply, we've hacked kind of facial recognition software and applied it to landscapes and objects in art. So all the user needs to do is turn their head to look at the painting, let's say, that the audio in the tour has told them to look at, and the matrix that we've put over that painting triggers that part of the tour. So in terms of the trade-offs between the usability trade-offs, what we like is the person is relieved of any obligation to manipulate any buttons or to scan anything. We don't rely on Wi-Fi to project the tour. We use this system that we've come up with for visual recognition to trigger the tour. And what that means is, from a practical perspective, a lot of the points of failure that are inherent with other attempts to bring AR to the cultural sector disappear. And as a consequence, the process that or the experience that the person goes through feels much more seamless. Having said that, Epson, to its credit, keeps pushing the envelope with each generation of the Moverio product. And just like iPhones, they're going to get smaller and more powerful and more wearable as time goes by. What has really impressed me in terms of our emerging relationship with Epson is how interested they are and how quickly they respond to user feedback. So if we're out in the field and we notice that something's going right or there's an issue, we tell Epson and they immediately dive in and try and solve it. And, to be clear, we're still in the startup phase. We're launching in the United States. We've had a great run in Europe, and right now, we're the only company in the world that's doing what we're doing. We know that's not always going to be the case. But Epson is a big, long-lasting company. The fact that they are paying so close and are so collaborative with a lot about their long-term prospects to be, I think, a dominant player in the AR field.
Yeah, that's high praise. And do you have anything to say about that? Because you two seem to have a really good partnership going.
Yeah, I think the partnership with ARtGlass actually started in Italy with the Moverio BT-200, which was the predecessor to the current model. So ARtGlass has been one of the leaders in bringing augmented reality experiences at arts and culture sites and since for several years. So they're definitely a leader in that space. And Epson is very honored to be partnered with them in bringing that experience to the U.S. as well. And one of the things I want to talk about Epson is that we, as you know, we're a very big company. Mm-hmm. We own the technology. We actually have patents. When I dive into the archives of the Epson patents, we actually have had smart glasses, augmented reality glasses type of patents back in the mid-'80s, if you believe it. So our company has been very engaged in doing fundamental research in this. Augmented. Back then, it wasn't called augmented reality. It was, just called wearable display.
Right.
Before there were terms of augmented reality and smart glasses, and it's just called a wearable display. The fact that you can wear a display on your face, powered by some type of computing device. So we're vertically integrated from R&D to engineering to design and development to manufacturing. Sales and marketing, it's all done by Epson, and we're very excited to be one of the big players in this space.
Yeah, and that is certainly something unique because many of the companies that come on the show and talk about anything in this field, they're startups and they either provide the hardware and and not the manufacturing, simply the design and then the implication or the implementation of the hardware, but actual manufacturing is usually shipped over. So Epson, I don't think anyone can question whether or not whether or not Epson can manufacture high quality pieces of technology, because hey, you do it for very expensive printers and things like that for the enterprise grade, things like that. So that's very interesting, something definitely to consider. Real quick, I wanted to go back to Greg and talk about just real quick. I know that we mentioned a while ago that augmented reality, it's something to certainly take notice of. I was reminded, and I just checked it out, back on November 27th last year, we talked to a gentleman with VRT Ventures. And what he did was there are touring art exhibits. They come to a location, and then after the tour is over, they simply dissolve and disband, and you can never experience that once again. He took virtual reality, filmed it to a very high degree, used very, very high quality cameras to capture the art exhibit in virtual reality, so then you could experience it, at least a version of it, if you weren't able to make it to the actual art exhibit. My point for bringing this up is that VR, you can provide a very immersive experience, and it can be something that you can kind of save and reuse at another time. What are the benefits of actually going out there and going to, like, let's say a monument, or going to a mountain, or going to a heritage site, and actually kind of being there? Are there why AR instead of VR?
Well, that's a great question, and it's not in either or when it comes to the cultural sector. There's no question that there are millions of people around the world who will never, for instance, be able to make it to the pyramids of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And VR is going to play a wonderful role at really bringing kind of mind-blowing experiences to people where they are, right? And that'll have an educational and informative impact. It'll have an impact on cultural appreciation. Having said that, for those people who can and do go to sites because they have a sense that being in the place with the actual objects and the actual landscapes still matters in terms of one's appreciation and enjoyment, then that's where AR comes in. In the United States, every year, more people visit historic and cultural sites than all professional sporting event attendance and all theme park attendance combined.
Wow.
So add up all the Disneys and all of the World Series and all the other professional games out there, and more people still go to museums and historic sites by almost a factor of 2. And the reason for that is people love history, they love culture, they love to take their kids there, and being in the place with the object, no matter how realistic VR gets, is still, for the time being, a really compelling experience. But I would just emphasize that it's not that these are two sides of the same coin, in the sense that if the objective is to bring the lessons of and the values of history and culture to more people, then both VR and AR will play a significant role.
Makes perfect sense. So, and yeah, so this interview is running a little bit long. I appreciate both of you sticking around to talk with us. But real quick, we'll go back to Anna and Epson, and let's talk about Epson's goals for their augmented reality products, because we mentioned that there's lots of applications in business, but I mean more on a kind of personal technology level. Are you hoping to get them? I'm sure you would like them cheaper, almost to the point of disposable and very accessible. But at the same time, are you hoping that you get them smaller, or maybe work them into other pieces of hardware? I mean, where does Epson kind of see this AR thing going?
Obviously, we've made a commitment to this category. We launched our first version of the BT-100 even before Google Glass. We started shipping in Japan. And so our commitment to this category has been well over 5 years, and we will continue to invest in the technology and basically with each successive generation, we've made them smaller, lighter, brighter, more wearable, and more accessible to both enterprise and consumer. So that's been Epson's history of all of our technology products, whether it be printers, scanners, projectors, is that when we commit to a category, we will commit to continuous improvement and continuous innovation in that category. So I don't think you should think of it as a point in time. It's going to be a continuous many points in time, focusing on both products for the enterprise and products for the consumer.
Very, very cool. And yeah, we have a link to it so that, technical specs looks like running at, let's see, I saw the resolution there, 1280 by 720. So high definition, runs for 6 hours, can be charged via USB. I mean, all in all, it sounds like a very powerful, kind of piece of technology. Now now it's time to really branch out and, make partnerships such as with ARtGlass to, hey, get awareness, because this is a field, we've seen it in things like Minority Report and science fiction, future-esque kind of movies, but the technology's here, and I guess over at Epson, you believe it's not only here, but it has a lot of uses.
And we're very excited to continue to work with partners like ARtGlass to uncover those use cases, because it's really delightful. We get calls all the time from software partners who come up with new ways of using our glasses. And a lot of them are still under development, so we can't talk about them. But it's just amazing, the creativity that is out there surrounding augmented reality, using the camera that's on our glasses, the front-facing camera, for AI, very similar to ARtGlass. They're using the front-facing camera to recognize paintings and objects so that the right experience is rendered automatically in the visitor's field of view.
So, and Greg, I mean, one part of this that we haven't touched on yet is the fact that, through these glasses and at your sites, that's one thing, but they, just by slipping on these glasses, it's not magic. Someone has to create the content that people will be viewing. How is that content generated? Because let's use something like, the Roman Colosseum. Right now it's a pile of stone, and it's very impressive, but it is definitely a far cry from what it was when it was founded, thousands of years ago. Where does your content come from, and who, do you partner with different companies, or do you do this all in-house to create these experiences?
That's a great question. Typically, the sites that are in a position now to adopt ARtGlass and wearable AR at scale have significant in-house capacity in the form of curators, digital teams, and others that for a number of years have already been scanning, digitizing, and thinking about the way in which to convert their real-world physical objects and places into modes that can be appreciated, on a website and elsewhere. So typically, we will work closely between our kind of content and subject matter experts. ARtGlass is not just a kind of technology company, but we employ archaeologists and art historians and specialists in different periods of history, so that when we go to a site, we can have a very quick, very efficient dialogue between subject matter experts about the story that the site wants to tell. We then give the site some parameters on the nature of the digital content that we need from them. So for instance, if we say that we want George Washington to be a holographic tour guide for the first part of the tour of Mount Vernon, we know that that means finding Mount Vernon's best George Washington interpreter, filming them in front of a green screen and giving us a file of certain dimensions. We then have completely proprietary software that we use to translate that content into a form that is A, good storytelling, and B, works effectively with the hardware that we're using.
And I think it's important to say that from the beginning, our company sought to be have the ability to be hardware agnostic, right? So we wanted to be able to function across any of the multiple pieces of hardware that folks are producing these days. But we have chosen Epson again and again because of some of the characteristics that you described earlier. The really long battery life, because we like to see 5 or 6 tours be able to be given each day on the hardware. The high quality of the resolution. We don't want a pixelated George Washington. We want the full, realistic looking George Washington. And so it's really the combination and teamwork between experts at the sites, our in-house content and digital team, and then the folks at the hardware continues to be kind of cutting edge. That's how we end up with a high quality tour experience.
Oh, and I mean, just real quick, and Anna, I think you could answer this better. When you have these docks, I believe you call them the docks for the glasses. Do the projectors run off a different battery, or is that battery through the dock? And can the docks kind of be switched in and out? Because obviously, for things like a tour guide, either you have a rotation of all the hardware, some charging, some being used, some ready to go, or is it simply one set of glasses and then you can have maybe twice as many docks that you can rotate as you need them? Where's the battery for these things?
So I mentioned earlier about having a handheld controller. So within the handheld controller is the battery, the processor that runs all this wonderful computation. It also runs the Android operating system. It has the micro USB port, and that controller is swappable between glasses. So there's a proprietary connector that connects the glasses to the handheld controller, so the two can be disconnected and swapped out if necessary for the application. Obviously, for consumers, it would be you probably would just have the one set, but in the enterprise space, there's certainly a need for that ability to swap new controllers if necessary.
And I think we're going to kind of wrap up there. I'll give you both a chance to, kind of say one more thing. But I think we'll start with you, Anna. I mean, once again, Epson, you're right. They are a leader in a lot of the hardware that they do. And I guess projectors, I never really thought of the connection between projectors and augmented reality. But after you explained it, it made perfect sense. Anna, if people want to find out more, where should they go? Where would you like to, where would you like to send them?
Well, there's 2 places I'd love to send people to. One is our website, epson.com/Moverio, Moverio. And also there's a lot of videos on YouTube on our Moverio channel. It's youtube.com/Moverio. And you'll see really a wide range of application videos that we've created, some of our end users have created. So definitely check those 2 websites out.
Very, very cool. And then, of course, Greg, same question. I mean, if people want to find out more and if people want to see it in action, where can they go?
They can go to ARtGlassUS.com, and they'll see sample clips from the tours that we've launched in Italy and Switzerland, and now in the United States. And of course, on that site, they'll find links to all of our social media accounts as well. But hey, thanks very much for this conversation. This has been terrific, and we look forward to checking back in with you maybe a couple months down the road when we've got some more progress to report.
Yeah, I was about to say, you mentioned something Highland heritage site. If are there any sites that maybe people, because we're a nationwide show, anywhere people can go to maybe try this out in person right now?
If they're in the United States, they should stay tuned. Over the next couple of months, we will be announcing partnerships with iconic sites in major metropolitan areas throughout
Perfect.
the United States.
Perfect.
And
Yeah. And
so, present, they can make their way to Highland in Charlottesville, Virginia, late spring, early summer. They'll be able to go to George Washington's Mount Vernon in Northern Virginia, and then during the rest of the year, we're likely to announce sites in New York, New Orleans, Chicago, and elsewhere.
very, very cool. And yeah, please keep us up to date, and we'd love to let our audience know about them. But I will say to both of you, Mr. Greg Werkheiser, he is the CEO and founder at ARtGlass, and of course, Ms. Anna Jen, she is the director of Augmented Reality Solutions at Epson. And once again, both of you, thank you for joining us. This was it really makes a lot of sense, just kind of at face value, and it was an awesome opportunity to talk to both of you about it. So both of you, thank you so much, and thanks for being on Computer America.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and have a great one. Bye-bye. Talk to you later. Have fun. All right. And there they go, everyone. I kind of cut her off. I apologize. So there goes Epson, and there goes ARtGlass. So everyone, thank you so much. And all right, so next we do computer and technology news. So let's see. For our first story of the day, we are going to go ahead and go over to, oh man, there are a lot of great stories. How about we talk about this one? This one's just coming out. And yeah, Tesla, Elon Musk, of course we love talking about him and everything that he's doing. And, one of those things is, in fact, well, this is pretty cool. If he manages to do this and, there's a... okay, let's just play pretend. Let's imagine he does this. His next project, not SpaceX, but related to SpaceX, is something called, Starlink. And it's a massive, massive, massive amount of satellites that he's going to send up. And by the way, as of 3 days ago, SpaceX already has 2 demo satellites up and running. So yeah, what does this really mean? Well, we have this article here from, Parabolic Arc. And yeah, they say that SpaceX wants to launch about 12,000 satellites. And, well, earlier this morning, Elon Musk, he replied to someone who commented to Starlink's Twitter feed saying that we will be simpler than IPv6 and have tiny packet overhead, definitely peer-to-peer. And an hour later, he mentioned end-to-end encryption encoded at firmware level, unlikely to be hacked with current computer technology. If it is, and when we learn about it, a crypto fix will go out immediately via network-wide firmware update. So, with both of these reports, and again, if you haven't heard about Elon Musk, if you haven't heard about Elon Musk in this particular venture, already a couple satellites up and running and 12,000 more to go. But what he kind of promises, or what he's hoping to get, investors behind, and then hopefully all these satellites in orbit around Earth, is that you never run into a dead zone for internet. Of course, underground and things like that. But if you have a view of the sky, then you have fast, decent internet, even at a base, even at a bare minimum. And really, compared to current satellite internet, this is way beyond any capabilities that current satellite internet can do. Very ambitious, and no guarantee that he'll even be able to do this. But if anyone is crazy enough to try, well, it's going to be Elon Musk. So, we're going to have a link to that in the show notes if you want to check that out and that article out. But the demo satellites are up, and we can definitely see, where he's kind of going with this. So, with that being said, let's see. Next story for computer and technology news. Why don't we go ahead and... okay. How about we talk about this one? CBS. You've heard of them. They are a decently large company, and they have a lot of great content. Well, they also have a lot of great sports. And as you know, sports is one of the last vestiges keeping traditional cable alive. But more and more, between ESPN and between many other networks, we're seeing that sports are finally coming to cord cutters around the world. That having the content available online, streaming, is super important to keeping your audience engaged, because a lot of people, well, they just don't watch TV like they used to. Sure, you can still sit down and watch a game, but a lot of people are on the go, they travel, blah, 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 and tying it to traditional cable just isn't cutting it anymore. Enter CBS, and they are launching a 24/7 sports streaming network for news and analysis. So, doesn't seem to be games, seems more like highlights and, again, news and analysis, but hey, it's a step in the right direction, and shows that traditional networks are, kind of coming, finally kicking and screaming into the age of the internet. So for all you sports fans out there, today CBS launched CBS Sports HQ, so probably headquarters, a new sports-focused streaming network meant to be complementary to CBS Sports and the CBS Sports Network programming. Its 24-hour free streaming network will feature sports news, game previews, highlights, and post-game analysis, and is accessible through a number of platforms at launch. And along with being able to jump into live programming, CBS Sports HQ visitors will also be able to go back and watch previous segments with the network's DVR-like functionality. That DVR-like functionality, it's a feature among many streaming platforms, YouTube included, so not surprised that they have it, but pretty cool if you wanted to, let's say pause it for half an hour or what have you. So, CBS announced plans for a 24/7 sports streaming channel last year, and it now joins the network. It now joins the network's other streaming offerings, including subscription service to CBS All Access and its 24 hours news streaming network, CBSN. So, with all that said, they said that CBS Sports announcers and reporters will also appear on CBS Sports HQ programming. Anchors, they have a list of names here. Probably everyone, if you are a fanatic for CBS Sports, you're going to see a lot of familiar faces. So currently it's available through all of CBS's apps and websites and things like that. And hey, probably coming to a few more bundles near you in the near future. All right. So, hey, very, very simple. CBS finally coming even more into the age of the internet. It's great to see. All right. So if you didn't catch it last week, we talked with Sandy Berger, and it was a great interview. I believe it was last Wednesday, where we talked with her about smart speakers and how, it's already kind of a crowded field, but at the same time, there's still plenty of room for a new large player to come in to the smart speaker arena. And while you have things like Amazon's offerings and Google's offerings, Apple's offerings fell short when it came to the intelligence of the device. Very, very important. And, well, let's just say that, what should have been a 3-player market has turned into a 2-player looking for a third or more. And enter Samsung. Samsung says, this coming to us from Engadget, Ms. Swapna Krishna, and Samsung is saying that in the second half of 2018, they will release a smart speaker. And they said that, of course, we've known for a while now that Samsung was working on its own smart speaker. And and of course, this was an answer to Apple's HomePod. And they said that it appears that the speaker, which will run with Bixby, which has not been a killer success here in the United States, but it's Bixby will be on a Samsung-powered smart speaker. And this differs from what we've heard previously, where back in December, they had reports that Samsung's smart speaker would release in the first half of 2018, and it's not clear whether this later release date was planned all along or whether it continues to delay. So, the author says that we still don't know how much the speaker will cost, though if Apple, if if Apple's any indication, they're probably going to go with something higher end, not competing at that $100 level, but trying to compete at that $200, $300, almost $400 level. And they said that Samsung's aiming for a premium market. Obviously, they have a quote here saying from the Samsung's mobile chief said to the Wall Street Journal, "When I introduced the first model, I don't want to give the impression that Samsung delivered another affordable mass model." They said that I want to focus more on, he wants to focus more on premium. So I don't know if that's a great way to go about it. I think what made both Amazon and Google's offering so great was that they did offer a lot of different price points. If you just wanted to get in and you wanted to get started with a smart speaker, then you're good to go. I feel like by Apple and Samsung both just trying to offer that, how do you put it? Just trying to offer that premium speaker, that implies that there was some kind of market for a premium speaker in people's homes and then a smart speaker, not the other way around. And that's not the case. People are looking for that smart speaker. They're looking for that intelligence that's going to control their devices, that's going to be very intelligent and easy to communicate with. It's going to be, first and foremost, a digital assistant, something that can help them around their home or do cool things, or just be useful in their day-to-day lives. A whole home speaker, or at least a premium speaker, that's a niche market. That continues to be a niche market. Something that, maybe audiophiles are going to get behind, something that, people who are looking to entertain for parties and places like that. I mean, the market is not growing as fast as smart technology. So again, for Samsung to say that, hey, we're going to focus on a premium, that's not really instilling confidence, because Bixby, the intelligence behind Samsung's devices, not very good for English speakers. And, I would say it's even probably on par, if not behind Siri. And Siri was panned. During the Apple HomePod because it just didn't work with a lot of other devices. It didn't work with any other music services. It didn't, you couldn't do anything outside the Apple ecosystem. And so maybe Samsung will have a leg up in that, of course, being Android based. But at the same time, I don't know if Samsung is really, because I think at this point, you can't just copy Apple. Apple can't just copy Apple. And for Samsung to tread after it, I don't feel that's a recipe for success. So there you go. All right. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and let's see. Man, I don't think we have time to get into another. We're only minutes away. So some other stories that you should definitely check out. There was there's a report today that Apple has been using Google's cloud for iCloud. So, if you feel like Apple just provides better services, well, it's no secret that in the tech industry, even behind the scenes, even though they can label it, brand it, and sell it to you in any kind of packaging, behind the scenes, there's only a few truly capable providers. And hey, Apple's not going to spend the time, the resources, or the effort to put together their own cloud system. Instead, they'll just license it from Google. So, we have reports of that. We have some new comments from the FCC commissioner. Folks, we're going to cover all these later on, probably tomorrow, when we have time. And of course, speaking of tomorrow, let's check out who we have on. Joining us will be Jeremy Ring. And it looks like this is a book. He's an author saying that, he was previously an employee of Yahoo. So this is going to be great. It's going to be a book. And hey, I honestly, truly, I feel like authors are some of the best guests that we have here on the program. They're just a lot of fun, and they are very well researched. So tune in tomorrow for that interview. And of course, Computer America, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. So until next time, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. And yeah, catch you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.